Welcome back to the pre-press class at Fullerton College. This is Professor Ben Hewitt, and this is video number 2 of the PIA's pre-press training handbook, section 4.4, digital hardware and software. We were talking when we last left about scanners and how to set them up. I know there's a lot of this blah, blah, blahing about scanning, and scanning is not a huge part of the printing industry anymore, but as with a lot of things that relate to color and imagery, even if the specific device we're talking about isn't used as much, these terms and these concepts are still very valuable to other things you do in printing. As I was alluding to, Don Hutcherson, when he invented the G7 color management method, which is the premier one in the United States at this time, that method is based off of scanner calibration because he was a scanner salesman to begin with. And he learned so much about color through scanning that he got into controlling the color on all printing presses across America because his method worked, and it was all based off of calibrating scanners for sales. Cool, huh? Anything you know can be transferred to other parts of your life. I find that the key to success in a lot of things is how well you're able to cross-pollinate your ideas. The more cross-disciplinary learning you can do, the better. Obviously, there might be some things that don't transfer ever, but a lot of concepts are very much transferable. And definitely, when we're talking about image and imagery and image creation, that goes across all sorts of things. So, contrast. That's how different your lights and your darks are in an image. There's a good image here, these three grayscale strips. On the far left, too much contrast means that the lights are so light, the darks are so dark that you only get part of your grayscale before you're all the way black, and then it's just darkness. Turn on the growl rock. It's time, guys. Du hast. Sorry, we're back. The middle one is about normal, where it starts pretty light and it gets darker and darker until it kind of fades away to black, which is how it should be. I can even turn up, you won't see me doing this actually, since we're not in a classroom, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't record this. I turn up and down the brightness settings on my computer monitor, and I can see the last few numbers or not in the grayscale. And on the far right, the one that looks gray from the top to a little bit more gray at the bottom, that does not have enough contrast. That's too little contrast. Gray balance. Dramatic pause over. Gray balance is the most important way of controlling color. They talk about it here just for calibrating scanners, but gray balance is the keystone. If you know about arch building, the keystone. This is the thing that holds the house up when we're talking about color. Grayscale means that your grays are neutral. Gray balance means that a light gray only looks a little bit black. It doesn't look a little cyan or a little yellow or a little magenta. It looks gray. It has no observable color, and it is only light or dark. If you remember that globe image, time out for a second. I'll get it for us. Here we are. My LAB chart, also lifted from Don Hutch. He taught us this. Remember, when you're talking about LAB, it's a spherical, a three-dimensional graph of all the colors just to chart their locations. The A value is how red or green it is, and the B value is how blue or yellow it is. Positive just means it's in one direction on the graph. Negative means it's the other. Anyways, the central pole, the middle of this circle going from top to bottom, if you put a pin through it so you can spin the globe, that is L, luminance or lightness. A good neutral gray will have no A or B value. It'll be A0, B0 on that pole. It'll be straight up the middle of the chart, only dark or only light. Basically, if we're talking human perception, a good neutral gray will only be seen by your rods and not by your cones in your eyes. It won't notice any color. Which is the same thing, which is actually, if you're talking about perception, the same thing as saying it will notice equal amounts of all colors so that it appears to be just one color. I mean, appears to be just gray. So here we are, back at gray balance. If you can keep your grays neutral, all the other colors will fall into line. Remember that chart I was showing you with the globe, the C-Lab chart? It balances on that middle point. If the middle point is tilted, then the whole thing is going to fall over. If that middle axis is straight vertical, think about like spinning a basketball on your finger. I have to say, think about it, because there's no way I can do that. Yeah, I can't do that at all. Went and tried it. But that's why I decided to give you guys the video of the Harlem Globetrotters doing it, because they're really good at that. I am not. But that's a good visual to think about. You spin that thing so the middle stays in the center. The middle of our color experience is black and white. It's the gray line up the dead center of our basketball that is all the colors we can see. So if you keep that thing balanced, all the other colors will stay balanced. You'll be able to get anything you want to get much more accurately if your grays are in order. So digital cameras. These things are also not that different from a scanner. They're not so different, you and I, Mr. Bond. They're really not. The difference is the optics. Now, there's lots of different kinds of digital cameras out there. There's a third kind that's not visible on this thing because this predates the smartphone by a few years. The camera phone wasn't really commonly used as a crutch for trying to take photos. Neither were iPads. So understand that that should be there too in the pictures. Anyways, that camera on the top is a DSLR, a digital single lens reflex camera. My wife has one of these at home to take better pictures of our kids and pets. And they have all of the very high-end optics that used to be present in good professional film cameras. The only difference between them and good old-fashioned Nikon film cameras shooting on 35 millimeter, like we used to do when I was a kid, is that all the light systems and the optics focus the light onto a digital sensor rather than focusing it onto film. Down below, those Samsung models, those are vacation point and shoot cameras. Those are consumer model, not professional cameras. They do not produce the same thing. While they may have very similar sensors inside, I can say this also of your cell phones. And believe me, this is a plague that has plagued me. Man, language not working for me right now. This has plagued me my whole career. People who think their cell phones take better pictures than they actually do. Yes, it has a very good sensor. Sure, the digital file it can create is robust, but how good are the actual glass lenses that focus the light onto it? How much depth of field can it actually capture? How many different levels can you focus at? What kind of quality are you going to be recording? Because the sensor only records what it sees and what's focused on it. So it doesn't matter how good it does matter. But if all the sensors are the same, the difference between items is not the sensor, but the glass lenses that focus the light to the sensor. I could tell you it's a sales pitch they use to sell you your iPhone. It has a great camera and it takes perfect pictures. Well, yes. And those perfect camera pictures that they take are typically viewed on, let me guess, other iPhones and iPads and sometimes on a computer. I don't know if I need to remind you, but let me remind you that on a digital camera, a digital screen, I mean, a computer or a camera or an iPod or iPad. Wow, I'm sounding older and older here. iPad or something, tablets. Those screens, things look good at 72 dots per inch. They look unbelievably, mind-blowingly amazing at 150 dots per inch. The minimum acceptable resolution for a good print file, if it's going to look good when you actually put it on paper, is 300 dots per inch. So just because it says it has a great camera and it takes all these megapixels, it'll tell you that's the number of pixels in the image, but what do those pixels contain? It's kind of like those storage unit reality shows I've heard about. I don't watch reality TV. It bores the heck out of me. But anyways, those reality storage unit ones, they go open up a storage unit that someone defaulted the payments on and they open it up to see what's inside. Well, you never know what's in there. I mean, any storage unit, no matter how big or small, is only as good as the stuff that people put into it. There's my analogy here. You have all these pixels on your camera, all these megapixels, how great your image can be, but it's only as good as what the optics were able to capture and put into that sensor. You can have a great memory and waste all of your memory on remembering useless facts about comic. Oh, wait, this is getting really, really too close to home here. It wasn't comic books for me. It was like movies, books, and airplanes. But still, you can waste all of your excellent memory on useless information. You totally can. Or you can use it on things that matter. So being smart, if it's not relevant, same thing here. If you have a great camera, but you're not getting good focused light, if you're not using good optics, it doesn't matter how good your sensor is. You need to have good optics and a good sensor. Anyways, I went off on a long diatribe Apologies, I feel very strongly about these things. Can you tell? So digital photography, they're trying to sell you here on the fact that you don't need to make film anymore and develop it. And you don't need to scan it anymore. You could just put your image straight onto a computer. Did you know that? I know it's a little out of date, but that's the way things have gone. Almost all photography, even the most professional, is done digitally. You can not get away with. You can kind of mimic the look of a lot of different developing techniques you would have done by chemical using in a darkroom, using film, using Photoshop. That's actually what Photoshop is intended to be. It's a digital way of developing your film, so to speak. So let's move on. Different types. Point and shoots are consumer cameras. They don't have all the functions. They don't have the lens. The lens only sticks out so far. I will say I do own one of these, and it has one very, very good feature. Actually, it's two good features. It's drop proof and waterproof. So you can swim with it, you can drop it, you can let your kids hold it and take pictures, and they won't kill it. Although I should perhaps overshare. My wife and I did destroy one of these ones. It is possible to kill them. Many, many years ago, we were going to a theme park with friends, and the camera fell up out of our pockets on a loop. It's lost somewhere in the undergrowth underneath Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Somewhere there's a digital camera, and it probably survived the fall because those things are robust. But anyways, so point and shoots can be sturdy, they can be convenient, you can fit them in your pocket, you can fit them in your purse, you can hide them. They don't take up a lot of space. I can tell you that carrying a full-on professional camera is a little bit annoying to have to lug that thing around and to have the extra camera bag with you at the zoo or wherever you're taking your kids. To get good pictures, it takes good equipment, and good equipment takes some sacrifice. It also costs a lot more money. And that's the single lens reflex kind, the type below. Canon makes them, Nikon makes them. Don't remember all the other, Kodak, I believe. I don't remember all the manufacturer names. I use Canon, not that it matters. The key there was I was able to get a good price on a used one of high quality, so that's why I linked to that. Anyways, they can use either CCD or CMOS to capture the image data. We'll get into both of those in a little bit here too. CCD, charge coupled device, is one of the technologies you can have, and it's a type of sensor. The charge coupled device, when light hits it, it's used to capture the light when you open the aperture of the camera. You press the button on the camera, it goes click. The click sound that you hear, especially on an older camera, on a new one, the digital ones, it's always recording and just says, okay, now I'm going to remember what I saw. But for the higher quality ones, the ones with actual physical lenses, that click is the sound of an aperture, a little door opening up to let the light touch, used to be film, let the light touch the sensor. And it lets the light touch the sensor for only a split second. You can actually adjust how much light is collected by how long that little door stays open before it snaps shut again. Like I said, a lot of modern cameras will play a sound that sounds like that for you, that fake click you get from digital cameras on your phone. It doesn't have an aperture. It's not doing that. There's no open and close thing. Anyways, sorry. You don't have a certain amount of time for it to be open. It just records during that time by software. Anyways, so then through an analog to digital converter, it processes the captured light from how it's sensitive to seeing it. There's also CMOS, complementary metal oxide metal S. Wow, I'm stumbling all over it. It's a mouthful, guys. CMOS, it's much easier than complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Whew, I did it. So a CMOS also has that ADC built into the chip itself, and it's cheaper to make. So these are more common. Neither one is actually all that bad. They both do a good job. CMOS has kind of taken over a little bit more over the CCDs in more recent years. Let's go on here and talk about this briefly, though this video is getting kind of long. So CCD is a higher quality image thing. It requires more electricity to do the capture, more power. I guess I should put a home improvement clip on here somewhere. More power and all that. So a low noise image means it doesn't get as much incorrect data recorded. It records the best. And it does a better job of getting low light imagery. So if you're trying to shoot at dusk or in the darkness or at something that is mostly made of dark tones, CCD is going to do a better job. CMOS is more susceptible to noise, kind of like getting grain. You'll have random pixels of wrong colors in the middle of things. It takes less power though. One of the reasons it's really popular is battery life is a real issue for digital cameras. So the more power you use, the less photos you can take. In fact, I remember an early camera I had when digital photography first came out, and I got one, and I went and put some batteries in it that I got like Dollar Tree, not really realizing also the difference between alkaline and non-alkaline batteries, but they all ran on AA's at the time. This is pre-lithium, by the way, before the lithium ion rechargeable battery took over and made life amazing. And I could take literally 2 pictures before the batteries were dead off that camera. Probably had a CCD. So CMOS is a thing that gets used a lot more these days because it uses less power. Although thankfully lithium ion batteries have come in to make it to make us have better batteries. And it has less light sensitivity. So you're not going to get as good nighttime shots or shots in the dark. If you want to shoot pictures of fireworks, CMOS is not the way to go. We'll come back to this in just a moment.